Oh, whoa. Hassan slap.
Like, I was thinking about this, like, with Jon Favreau shitting on Daria Lisa the other day, but also being a massive advocate for Graham Plattner. And it's like, dude, how are you gonna hand wave away a totem cough while simultaneously be like, Daria Lisa is an anti-Semite because she went to a pro-Palestinian rally on October 8th. Like, that's crazy. I feel like I'm losing my mind a little bit, you know? Like, that genuinely doesn't make sense. Right? It's kind of crazy, right? Like, because the thing is, I mean, misogynoir is how you do that. Stop playing. I guess that's part of it.
That right now is exterminating people.
Like, I was thinking about this, like, with Jon Favreau shitting on Daria Lisa the other day, but also being a massive advocate for Graham Plattner. And it's like,
He's going to New York City. He's absolutely going to move to New York City, bro. Oh my God. He's got to be going there.
Is giving Iran the ability to become
React slopulism. No,
Skyscanner searches
not
billions
from Ben
of prices
Jordan. I
from
like Ben
all our
Jordan.
favorite travel sites in one place.
Power, speed, performance.
You noticed it, bro. I started watching so many of those Yellowstone clips last night because I was curious. Oh my God, bro. I feel like the writer room, it's got to be a bunch of conservative people or whatever who like are having a cum shot every time they get a new line. There's this clip of this lady who gets pulled over in this nice car, and she's like, "Oh, I'm gonna try to look like a whore, and I'll get out of this parking ticket or the speeding ticket." And then she pulls her skirt up, she gets her tits out and everything, and then the cop comes up and it's a fucking woman cop, and she's like, "Oh." But the lady in the car, she's too spunky. She's too spunky. And then when the cop comes up, the cop is spunky. And I'm like, what's going on here? I feel like these are both powerful conservative women. Who's going to be the bad guy in this exchange? The cop's writing her ticket, and then she's like, "So where you headed, ma'am?" And she's like, "Oh, I'm going on down to one of the ranches." And she's like, "Well, which ranch?" And she's like, "What do you mean, which ranch?" And she's like, "Well, we're in Texas country here, so, you know, we all know everybody down here." And she's like, "I'm going to the 4x8 ranch." And then the cop stops for a moment. I'm like, "Oh my God." And she's like, "Tell your husband, thank you." And she's like, "What do you mean by that?" And she's like, "Well, I eat meat. We're cattle country down here." And I'm just like, brah. It's just like the most slop retarded shit. Dude, I feel like this would be a good show. DJG's got to watch this show. Oh, fuck. I wonder what the... Sorry, I should have... I don't know why I just explained. We should have watched it. My bad.
Oh, now that's what I call cleavage. And hiked up the skirt. Well, you were giving it to me with both barrels. Any weapons in the vehicle, besides the two poking out of your dress?
No weapons.
Sure you know why I stopped you?
Yeah.
Where are you headed in such a hurry?
I'm gonna go see my husband.
And where's he?
Can I look at my phone?
You don't know the town where your husband is?
He's not in a town, he's in a ranch.
What ranch?
4 6s?
Really?
Yeah, you heard of it?
This is Texas. Kids study it in school.
Huh.
Tough to buy one of these on a cowboy salary.
Yeah, well, I do the breadwinning.
Yeah. You have that look about you. And just because there aren't a lot of cars on the road doesn't mean there ain't other things on the road.
Oh,
you hit a cow going 100, this is coming apart. You with it. Keep it under 80.
Yes, ma'am.
Tell your husband thank you for what he does.
Wait, why did you say that? Why would you thank him?
I put the food on my table too, but I don't grow it. This is cattle country, ma'am. We know what it takes to put a steak on the plate around here.
It's just like, dude, I can't imagine this show. The whole show. This has just got to be the funniest. Oh my god. Oh man. Destiny, it's not as bad as this one clip makes it seem. Every clip I've seen is hilarious. Are you telling me there are non-cringe clips of that show? Or I guess non-cringe episodes, huh? This one was frickin' epic too.
Montana is leasing 7,000 acres. So what policies are we, you're in my seat. So what policies are we, discussing today? Nobody? Well, let's see. In accordance with the U.S. Green Initiative, Montana is leasing 7,000 acres in Powder River County to Sun Energies.
It's a solar farm company.
Suspend natural gas leases on state land in Powder River County to support the sage-grouse restoration project. And what effect do you think 7,000 acres of solar panels are going to have on their environment?
There's no evidence that solar panels would have.
What do they do with the sagebrush when they put in the solar panels?
They
remove the sagebrush.
Yes, sir.
Sage-grouse live in the sagebrush.
I just said there's no
You know what
evidence.
scares me about you, Stanley? You're serious. I think tops of my agenda today is going to be budget discipline. You're all fired. I'm very mindful of our taxpayers' money, and you're all wasting it. How much money did we just save?
I would say roughly $1.6 million in salary and benefits.
Look at that. What a great day for the state of Montana. You're in my seat. So what policies are we discussing?
Wow. Now that's a real American. That's a real American hero right there. That's how they thought Doge would go. True. True.
Again, the great threat to the region and to the world. You don't negotiate with people who believe they are put on earth by God to destroy America. This is an Islamist war against the West. It cannot be lost.
Oh my God. I don't even know if I'm who this lady sounds fucking retarded. Who is she? Okay, this doesn't count as sexism because it's more racism, but are there any intelligent British women ever? I feel like all of them are actually fucking insane. Every public speaking British woman is crazy. There has to be. Jesus Christ. Oh, okay. She currently writes for The Times, The Jerusalem Post, The Jewish News Syndicate, and The Jewish Chronicle. She's married to Joshua Rosenberg. Is she Jewish? Is she even Jewish? She must be, right? Her family is Jewish. Okay.
If it's lost, the West is lost. They're not building intercontinental ballistic missiles because they want to hit Israel. They're doing it for America.
So what would you have Trump do?
If you go to war, you have to do it properly.
When you say properly, it's a euphemism
Properly.
for putting boots on the ground.
Yeah.
You effectively want what happened to Nazi Germany in World War II, or what happened to Japan, because there's no other way to do this.
There has to be boots on the ground, but the boots need to be the Iranian people.
This episode is sponsored by our friends at Hillsdale College. Right after this episode, go check out the incredible online courses, which are absolutely free at hillsdale.edu/trigger. Melanie Phillips, welcome back to Trigonometry.
Delightful to be here again.
Well, it's wonderful to have you on. We want to talk about the Middle East, the war with Iran, the potential deal or not deal that may be happening. But right as we sit here recording this, it's only a day since Keir Starmer, the British Prime Minister, has announced that he's entirely voluntarily leaving office, almost certainly handing over to Andy Burnham. And before we get into the Middle East stuff, we just wanted to get your perspective on what's happening here in Britain.
As you say, Mr. Burnham looks like he's going to become the Prime Minister. I think among the British public, the niceties of the British Constitution aside, they are furious that they elected somebody that they thought was going to be in power for 5 years, Sir Keir Starmer, and now they find some other bloke is going to be Prime Minister, and they didn't vote for him, and they feel a bit shortchanged. So I think that's quite dangerous for Andy Burnham. If he's going to, I think he's got a bit of a dilemma. If he's going to continue with the manifesto commitments laid out by Keir Starmer and enacted by Keir Starmer's government, he's going to find himself in exactly the same position of total unpopularity and manifest incompetence and worse that Keir Starmer found himself in. If he decides that he wants to junk all that and do something very different, then he's got a problem because he has no standing to do so, because that's not the agenda on which the Labour government or it's the Labour Party won its stonking great majority. So he, in all honour, he would need to call a general election very fast. And from what I read, he doesn't want to do that. So it looks like he is, I think, probably going to fall between the two, and he's going to tough it out. He's going to become, crowned as Prime Minister, and he's going to, I would imagine, change the agenda in certain respects from...
Just as a quick thing, Brits don't vote for their PM, right? The PMs come from the party, like the party chooses? And there's obviously probably some like popular will or whatever, or opinion, but... Okay, just making sure, okay.
On what Keir Starmer was doing, for which he will have no mandate. And I think that's going to get him starting off on the wrong foot as far as the public is concerned.
Do you have an explanation in your head for, Keir Starmer, by metrics, is literally one of the least popular prime ministers, I think the least popular prime minister in British history.
Yeah, because I don't know, where are all of the bongers that are upset that Keir Starmer is going? I think this just all... This reminds me of when, like, when right-wingers, like, invent talking points that they say the left all believe, but, like, nobody ever really believes that, and it's just, like, for their narratives. Like, when right-wingers in the United States were like, yeah, remember when they all told us that if you got vaccinated, it was going to be 100% effective? And I was like, nobody that took the vaccines thought that. That was literally just you guys saying that. And from you guys who didn't take any of the vaccines.
Which, even as someone who was never a huge fan of his, I actually find quite difficult to understand in terms of his own performance. I get the sense, and correct me or just disagree with me if you disagree, his deep unpopularity is a product of the reality of the country and where it's at, and the fact that to change that, you have to drastically change direction, which we're not doing. And I extrapolate from that going forward, whoever replaces him will inevitably end up in the same position or likely worse.
Yes, I think people really don't like being taken for mugs and being treated with contempt. And I think that's what they thought he was doing because, in answer to all kinds of questions at different times about why is this or that going wrong and what you're going to do about it, he was slippery. He wouldn't answer. He refused to answer. He changed the question. He changed the premise. And people can see this. And they can't stand that. They really can't do with that. Plus, he has a very unattractive public persona. He is very wooden and robotic. His main problem is he's not a politician. He's a lawyer. And he's not a public performer. Now you look at Andy Burnham, he's all performance. I mean, that's what he does, you know. I mean, you know, the black bomber jacket and the black T-shirt and I'm so hip and, you know, here are my fluttering long eyelashes. I mean, and everyone loves it. I mean, I think it's pathetic, but everyone loves it. And then you have Keir Starmer who's like, and everyone thinks, what a complete idiot. But he's not an idiot at all. But he doesn't have the politician's skill at being fly. He's not flying. To a certain extent, that's to his credit. The real problem is, you compare it with, I think Kemi Badenoch is doing tremendously well. She's saddled, unfortunately, with the entire Conservative Party, for whom nobody in their right mind would vote. So, okay, fine. So that's her problem. But when you look at what she is doing, she's cutting through now with the public, as far as I can see, who are really warming to her because they find her refreshingly direct, honest, straightforward. She doesn't dissemble. She doesn't pretend that she hasn't understood the question. She doesn't change the subject. She's very direct. If necessary, you know, she will give you, you know, wallop you between the eyes if you ask her a question that she thinks is really bad.
Wow.
And people warm to that. They want politicians who actually are people of integrity. And they don't find it. So you have a situation in which, you know, they will vote for these parties led by people that they despise or don't much like. And they will like somebody whose party they despise. So you have a bit of a mismatch at the moment to add to Britain's other woes.
If you look at since Brexit, I think we've had 6 prime ministers. We're going to be on to a 7th pretty soon. That, to me, is a political crisis, isn't it, Melanie?
Well, Britain is an ongoing political crisis. Britain is an ongoing crisis. Britain is a society which is basically going down fast. And it's been going down for many years, which I've been charting for many years because I've been around for a while. You know, it's been going down because it's been knocking out the bedrock institutions of the society, particularly, I would say, its education system. If your education system, which is all about transmitting a culture from one generation to the next, that's how you continue the culture. If you decided, as I recall, back in whenever it was, the 80s, the 70s, whenever it was, you decided that you can't do that because your culture really stinks. And it's racist to do that because you can't have a hierarchy of values. So you can't say your culture is better than any other, and so on. If you turn your education system into a de-education system, then you've had it, because you know you're going to produce what we've ended up with, which is young people who are now middle-aged people who know nothing and can't think for themselves. Plus the fact that, you know, there was an onslaught on the traditional family and an onslaught on the very idea of the nation itself. So nobody, you know, everyone thinks it's a big joke, the idea of fighting for it and so on. This is all a society in decline.
Yes.
And then you have this tremendous allied issue of mass immigration. You know, you have a society that's hollowed itself out.
And now they're bringing in new culture to replace everything.
Easy meat for a culture to come in and say, actually,
let's take over.
We've actually now got an opportunity to take this over, which is basically radical Islam.
Ah, true.
And so you have this building issue, this erosion on one hand of a society that won't defend itself, won't promote itself, creates a kind of vacuum into which is marching Islamic radicalism. Okay. Many Muslims in Britain are absolutely fine. They've signed up to the whole Western thing, but we know that there's a very large number who are not who do not want to do that and want Britain to adapt to Islam rather than the other way around. But they see their opportunity and they are marching in, demanding more and more that Britain should adapt to Islam. And
one of the things I hate about populists the most, I guess, I don't know, I guess maybe it's just always, again, where public discourse has been, is like it's always like they speak in the most vague kind of bullshit ever. Like, people always say that they want somebody who tells it like it is, but then, like, I don't know what you would call this. You know how there's like this thing like corpo speak, right? Where like a boss comes in or whatever, and he's like, you know, I don't know, just like empty, hollow, bullshit ass fucking words that mean fucking nothing. Like, these people always say they want people who are genuine. And it's like, okay, well, let's have some discussions about like policies and ways that we can actually make the country better and do things. So it's like, no. When I said genuine, what I mean is I want you to kind of like emotionally signal to me that you understand my frustration with, I don't know. It's like the most, like empty platitude shit ever. Like, she hasn't really mentioned a specific thing at all. It's just this vague allusions to like our culture is dying and our country's in decline and Muslims are coming in and immigration is ruining everything. It's like, what, talk about something. What do you want to do about it? What have the conservatives done that you like? What have the liberals done that you don't like, or the left done that you don't like? What do you want to see different? It's just like, I don't know. They'll get to it, I'm sure, though.
The British people can see that all the arms of the state, the government, politicians across parties, and the whole cultural elite are not only refusing to kind of draw red lines, cultural red lines, but are coming down like a ton of bricks on anyone who stands up and calls attention to this and defames them as being, Islamophobic, racist, fascist, and so on. And so the people are at boiling point. We can see it, in various things that have happened on the streets. And this is a very dangerous situation. And you have virtually the entire political class which is saying, we're not going to go there, which is making it far worse. So this is what Mr. Burnham is going to inherit. And he is going to be the head of a party which, among other things, no longer knows what it is. The Labour Party came into being as the political arm of the trade union movement, as the political arm of the working people of Britain. It then had a kind of transmogrification and has become the party of the intellectual elites, of the intelligentsia, the university educated people. And consequently, non-educated to high-level people have been left high and dry because the agenda of the intellectual elites is to despise the nation state, to despise the West, to despise Britain, and to want liberal universalism, transnationalism, and so on.
Trans.
So that's Labour having abandoned the people. And then you have the Conservative Party, which never was very good at thinking about anything at all, being composed traditionally of extremely stupid people. And then, it just saw this great sort of cultural change coming at it. And it decided...
Careful. When you're an American, when they say like Tories or when they say Conservative Party, that's like in America, that's the equivalent of saying like the neocons. She doesn't mean all conservatives because make no mistake, this woman is an unashamed, full-throated, 1 trillion% MAGA equivalent supporter in the UK, which would be Reform and Restore. 1 trillion%. So make no mistake about that.
To throw in the towel. It said it couldn't stand up against it. Nobody could stand up against it. You couldn't stand up against cultural change. And they bought into it over successive conservative prime ministers, successive conservative administrations. So the people were literally abandoned. This is what Mr. Burnham, if he becomes prime minister, is going to inherit. Now, this would test anybody. Does one have confidence that Mr. Burnham is such a statesman that he is going to stand back and meet these challenges? I have to say, and I may be being very uncharitable, but I'm not holding my breath.
He likes Oasis.
Well, I suppose that's all that matters, really.
I actually think it's a good point to move on to the Middle East. Melanie, thank you for that.
There's one thing that I wanted to mention because...
What other bands does he like?
Well, it's Stone Roses, but let's not focus on that. But there is one thing that you were talking about, no political party wants to go there. I would put it to you, Melanie, that there is one political party who wants to go there, and they're called Restore, and they got 7% in Makerfield.
No way!
This is true. When I say no political party, I meant no respectable political party. I meant no mainstream political party. It's true. What I described to you just now has produced an insurrectionist tendency, which once was Nigel Farage, and then he stopped being the insurrectionist because he's now got his own insurrection, which is Restore. And that's another story why Nigel Farage is no longer the kind of go-to person for people who want to, who say the entire political establishment has failed us.
Why do you think that Nigel Farage...
Oh, okay, well, that's unexpected. Does she think Farage has, like, failed to address the problem, or that he's become corrupt? Is he, like, not far right enough, or did he, like, lose his way? Oh, I wonder. Let's see.
Has that insurrection in his hands? Because I hear people saying Nigel Farage has become the establishment.
Yes.
And I mean, I pay fairly close attention to political discourse in this country. He doesn't appear to me to have massively changed any of his opinions, as far as I can tell. You clearly disagree, but I guess perhaps challenge me on this too. My sense is the general election is far away. People are desperate for change, and so the longer there is no change, the more extreme the rhetoric needs to be to satisfy the urge. Is kind of my perspective on it. You clearly feel different.
Well, I don't know. I think there is a very ugly mood that's building in the public, and I think that Restore is meeting that ugly mood with ugly rhetoric of its own, which I think is whipping it up.
But why is it building?
Because people are getting so furious.
Then I think we probably agree then.
But Nigel Farage, he is the most consequential politician since Mrs. Thatcher. Arguably even more so than her in some respects. And he was, and to a large extent still is, the go-to guy for standing up against the political mainstream and saying, I am in tune with the public are thinking. And to a very large extent, that is true. But I think people have picked up that two things. First of all, on a couple of issues, and I can't now recall which ones, but they were certainly, I think one of them at least was a welfare issue, he changed his position. And he changed it, it would appear, in order to appeal to a section of the population that he hadn't been appealing to. Now that's death, because this is a guy who was supposed never to do that. And I could hear it, people immediately said, oh, he's just like the others, isn't he? You can't do that. The Nigel Farage's unique selling point is, that's what I think, and I'm not changing it for anybody. That's why people like him.
I know what you're talking about, because I think the issue is essentially Nigel Farage is a Thatcherite. He wants small government, and he's won a lot of people in the Red Wall who want big government.
Right.
Just putting it very generalized and bluntly.
Right.
Yeah, when they say Thatcher, just think Reagan.
And I guess what you are pointing to is a lot of people see that as a typical politician move.
Exactly. And so the second point is this, that on this tremendously important issue of Islamization, which is so neuralgic and so dangerous for any politician to get into, I think, and I've thought this for a long time, he has flinched. He has flinched. Because I can feel I saw him once saying, there's a lot of Muslims in the world. We got to work out how to write this. And I thought, oh dear. It's very difficult how to write this, because you've got to be very careful. You've got a lot of Muslims in the country who are fine, but an awful lot who are not fine. And it seems to me pretty obvious. There are certain red lines you lay down. And every minority in the country has to basically live within those red lines, and every minority has done, except for this section of the Muslim world. And so you have to lay down those red lines. Now, he hasn't done that, as far as I know. And that's what he needed to do. So people are listening for him to say this, and he's not said it. Along comes Restore, and it's saying, I think, really terrible things. It's raising a question. Are they talking about throwing out not just foreign nationals who are doing terrible things? Are they talking about
Reform is like, there's a weird through line for when they say Farage is the most influential single politician in British politics in the last decade. That might be true. Other than maybe, I guess, I don't know what if you'd say Cameron for Brexit. Like Farage has just like been there as this weird, disgusting cancer that's been pushing kind of like a lot of the worst things in British politics for a long time. For the worst reasons. Yeah, I don't mean for good. I mean for good things. But the fuck, I was just gonna say something. I don't know what it was. Well, it's not even important. Oh, I was just gonna say I mix these up sometimes. The Reform Party was like, there's always like this movement of like, oh, they're not far right enough, so we need like a further right thing, and that's Reform. And then somehow, like off of the Reform stuff, the Restore stuff dripped out, which I think was like Tommy Robinson. I think is he the biggest figure? Or are there other larger figures for Restore now, which is like even more unhinged far right like actual super ultra far right shit. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what British politics is kind of been wild, but
foreign nationals who are doing terrible things. Are they talking about throwing out British citizens? Answer: no, of course we're not. But they've talked about dual nationals. Well, to me, that is throwing out British citizens. So this is extreme stuff. But the people who are looking to Nigel to say, here's the red line, are not hearing that. They're hearing Restore saying, we're going to throw them all out. And because of the mood in the country, they're saying, yeah, he's now our guy. I think this is fantastically dangerous because I think that the people that Restore has accrued to itself, not necessarily its leader, about whom I don't have a very strong view. I know he fell out badly with Nigel Farage. But the party has attracted some extremely unsavory individuals. So has Reform, actually, and it hasn't really got to grips yet with weeding everybody out as much as it should. But Restore is there are many more who are more objectionable. But unfortunately, because the rhetoric is more akin to what people want to hear, because they're not hearing it, even from Nigel Farage, they've been gravitating towards...
Okay, she might be... Sorry, hold on. I make a lot of assumptions because I hear so many fucking retards. I feel like this is a... So she has a slightly more nuanced view on British politics than I thought, which means I'm not going to be able to say much about it because I don't know all too much about British politics. The vibe I get, though, is that she does feel like both parties have failed, and she thinks that, like, there was a response that was coming to the failures of both the left and the right, but she doesn't like where Farage is, and she does think that the far right is, like, actually crazy. So, like the labor I would give her if this is American politics is she's like a Joe Rogan-esque person where she's like, she means well but gets tricked by a bunch of other bullshit. But I don't have that level of insight into politics in Britain to even know if that's the case. I'm going to say that. So she's not as bad as I was thinking she was going to be.
Restore. I think Nigel Farage can pull that back by laying down red lines. My final point, however, is I'm not sure whether that's really how he thinks. You say he's a kind of unreconstructed Thatcherite, and that's really how I've always thought of him, as an unreconstructed Thatcherite who has a thing about mass
Okay, never mind. She might be retarded. I don't know. Actually, never mind. I'm not sure. I can't tell. I don't know.
Immigration and stopping the boats. But unreconstructed Thatcherite doesn't fill me with a great deal of enthusiasm, quite frankly, because unreconstructed Thatcherites think in terms of economics. They think in terms of the market, the free market. I mean, no, that's partly why we are where we are, because people have forgotten what it takes to make a society in which we look after each other. Again, I don't hear that from Nigel Farage. I may be doing him a great disservice. But people are listening for this. They're listening, and they're not getting it. So I think that's partly why the shine has come off him. I think he can put the shine back on, but it requires some really kind of strategic thinking or strategic rethink about why he's kind of losing ground. I think he can make up that ground because he has to stand on ground which is basically decent and responsible and proportionate. And I think he can do that, but it's a narrow line that he has to tread.
I have people in my life who depend on me. Most of you listening do too. And if you're honest with yourself, you've probably had that moment where you think, what happens to them if I'm not around tomorrow? It's not a fun question, but ignoring it does not make it go away. This is why I think today's sponsor is worth paying attention to. Through Ethos, you apply in minutes, receive a quote instantly, and get same-day coverage. No medical exam, you just answer a few simple health questions. The whole process is 100% online, and you can get up to $3 million in coverage, with some policies starting as low as $30 a month. Ethos has 4.8 out of 5 stars on Trustpilot with over 4,000 reviews. Take 10 minutes to get covered
count
today
as magical
with life
spells? I didn't even know
insurance
that.
through Ethos. Get your free quote at ethos.com/trigger. That's ethos.com/trigger. Application times vary, rates may vary.
And moving on, we're going to talk about the Middle East. So you have been at the start of the war of Iran, you were very in favor of it. And you thought at the beginning, reading your Substack, which is excellent, that actually the Americans and the Israelis, there was some massive wins. Let's just put.
Somebody asked, how can a Trump figure such as Farage exist in the British media space? I feel like Trump wouldn't even exist if he had to deal with the British news outlets and pundits. Well, one, I would say it's a credit a bit to the British people that it took as long as it did for them to get there. Because when I think some European politics, especially in the United Kingdom, and again, I know a little bit of British politics, but not that much. So take everything I say with a grain of salt. But like, imagine in the United States. So when conservatives complain about things in the U.S., I would say that they have like a 2% like truth claim to the things that they say. But imagine if they had like a 20 to 40% truth claim to the things that they say, right? Things would be a lot different. And I feel when I look at like British politics, I feel a little bit of that the far right in the United States and even the far left, just Americans in general, are just very spoiled people who don't have to deal with many problems, even though they think they do. But I would say, especially in the UK, they do kind of have to deal with more problems that are difficult to weather sometimes. So their far right can gain a little bit more ground because they are speaking to a more genuine frustration. Like whatever problems we think we have in the U.S., like they generally legitimately do have some version of it in some of these European countries. Maybe I should just say the UK. I don't know. I shouldn't generalize, I guess.
It like that. And then as it's progressed, you become more and more critical. Why is that, Melanie?
Listen, you keep saying this, but the issues are absolutely overstated. I'm sure they are to some extent, but like, man, it's so hard because I should lean into personal examples more. I realize that. Sent me an email the other day. I have a lot of really good personal examples, but I just hate anecdotes. I'm so fucking toxic to them that I don't like to lean into them. But like, my kid's mom really did have stage 4 Hodgkin's lymphoma. 4B. It had spread far enough up and down, and she had been symptomatic for 4 months at least. And that shit was 100% covered. The port that she got, all the chemo, I think she might have done radiation. All of that was covered by Medicaid without basically a single cent out of her pocket, which is pretty amazing. And I feel like that's one of those things where it's like, oh, cancer as a young person, that's the end of your fucking life. Oh, America, now you're double dead because you're going to be in debt forever. And there was no debt from that. It was a pretty amazing thing that Medicaid 100% took care of all of that. But people think America, like, constantly has this thing like, oh, one hospital bill, you're bankrupt. Oh, one thing, you're bankrupt. Oh, what? Like, Americans truly think their shit is fucked. But for the, I remember when I went to that Hay on Way festival and I was talking to some of those NHS workers. When we had COVID, now, please don't take this wrong, my healthcare professionals, I love you very much. But when we had COVID, nurses were getting paid obscene amounts. They were coming from Canada to be traveling nurses because the pay was fucking crazy in terms of how much money these people would get paid. Now, hard work, a lot of stuff, 100%. But talking to some of these NHS nurses, these guys are getting paid like, I'm trying to remember what this lady was telling me. It was like 35,000 to 40,000 pounds a year, if that. Like, the pay is so much lower, and these systems are really taxed. And then the cost of the citizens are going up and everything, and you have all the wait times and everything else. Like, it's really, 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 really low. Don't even get me started on like UK tech wages. Like, American citizens will graduate from college at like 22, and they'll be like, I didn't get a job at Amazon or Google. I'm starting, comp sci major, graduated. I have 85K starting salary. Time to kill myself. It's over for me. Meanwhile, like, average computer, like software dev in the UK is getting like 50,000 quid. I don't know. Somebody look up. But like, it's like and it's not like the cost of living is so much lower too. It's not really. Median wage, United Kingdom, software developer. Is that what I would look for? And then median wage, United States, software developer. There's no shot that it's that high. Google has to be lying to me. In the UK, it's 60,000 pounds. In the US, the AI is telling me it's 133K. Is that real? From the BLS. 2024 median pay 131,000. What the fuck? To ask Claude questions. Anyway, I'm just saying that like the bongers like have like there are real issues sometimes that are difficult to fight with. And also keep in mind, this is outside of like bonger people don't even have in their mind the idea that like I'm 27 years old and I can't buy a house in London. Time to kill myself. Time to fucking kill myself. Meanwhile, in like LA, New York, Miami, oh, I can't afford a house here. Guess the system has fucking failed me. Can we talk about how much the American system has fucking failed every young person in America? Can we talk about how much of a fucking failure it is that I can't buy a house in Miami? It's just not to say, okay, to be clear, not to say that there aren't things that we could do better in America. We absolutely could. Okay, and I think it's good to talk about that. But sometimes I just think we overstate our struggle a little bit.
Well, because America, i.e. President Trump, turned on a dime and went the other way. He basically gave up. He's as far as I can see, he's the only American president ever to have gone to war against the Iranian regime, which I think is good. It's taken America 47 years to do so. 47 years ago, the Iranian regime came to power and declared war on America. And in the intervening decades has killed hundreds, if not more than hundreds, of Americans and injured many more, attacked endlessly American interests. And at every stage, America and the West have said, nothing to see here, move along. And some of us said over many, many years, the Iranian regime will never stop, will never resile from its aim to, first of all, destroy the state of Israel as a precursor to destroying America and the West. It will never resile from that. It is already waging war. The longer it goes on, the worse the eventual war will be for all of us. Scroll on, we get to President Trump, amazingly, going to war against the regime with Israel. And, as you say, achieving these amazing successes. But then, to his obvious horror, the Iranian regime, having taken this tremendous punishment, it lost its air force, it lost all its air defenses, its navy was at the bottom of the sea, numerous nuclear scientists were killed. Much of its nuclear program was reduced to rubble and buried underground by bombing. It lost large numbers of its ruling IRGC people and others who were killed. By any conventional standards, it was on the ropes. It should have said, okay, that's it. But it didn't. It said, we are continuing, and here we are. We have now taken the Strait of Hormuz. And everybody went, oh, where did that come from? I mean, how stupid is that? But anyway. So President Trump looked at that and said various things. He said, we're going to take the Strait of Hormuz, we're going to bomb Khawag Island, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. It's like King Lear, isn't it? You know, I will do such things on the blasted heath. And of course, he didn't do any of them.
Fuck, I talked about this so much. It was a thing I didn't understand until Ukraine-Russia, and then my knowledge on this solidified during the Israeli history. There's a lot of things that scare the public, but are actually like really, really, really good things to hear from world leaders. I'm sorry, I'm just saying this again because it's fucking nobody seems to understand this point. Okay, these are two countries. All right. Whenever you hear things in the media about how like Russia is shipping nukes from Moscow to St. Petersburg, or we see these nuclear weapons are being moved and these missiles are being armed, and we see blah, 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 blah. Okay? For public people, it sounds spooky because nukes and saber rattling and all that are spooky things. But for intelligence community people, and then for people working on the military classified side of things or whatever, I don't know, you wouldn't even say that, I'm sorry. Just for people that are watching politics, they're like, okay, well, you know, the fact that all of this is being done publicly, out in the open, and everybody's like making a big stink about it, this is good. It shows that everybody's still like, you know, kind of being like, hey, you know, look at me, I'm very serious right now, okay, I'm doing some fuck shit, right? Like if people actually wanted to start doing some crazy stuff, it would probably have to be like leaked from a classified source, or there would have to be like a big statement about it, because now people are actually getting super serious. There's this like back and forth where the reason why this back and forth happens is because political leaders are trying to shore up their popular support at home and then show their adversaries public that they're serious, but communicate to other people that they are, communicate to the military apparatus of the other country or the leadership apparatus of the country, like, hey, listen, like we're still on, even keel, right? So like a really good example of this, there have been several, but one was, we assassinate this dude in fucking Iraq. This is a historical map, absolutely true of Iraq. We kill this guy, Soleimani, and then Iran is over here, and they're like, you killed this guy? Fuck you. We're going to bomb this fucking airport in 6 hours, right? Why does all this get announced ahead of time? Well, because they want you to prepare for the strike. They want you to pull back your military figures. They want it so that when they do attack your airbase, they can blow something up, and then they can tell their public, look, we fucked their shit up. But America can say, well, we didn't even take that much damage, and then everybody walks away with their egos intact. And then also, so you don't risk this whole, like, they bombed an American base, and, like, 37 soldiers were killed. Oh, well, now America has to come and do some whip ass because you just fucked our shit up, and we have to show our public that our commitment to our troops is strong. So, right, and Iran makes that announcement after Soleimani. They shoot a missile, they miss, and they blow up their own civilian jet, but whatever, we don't talk about that. This back and forth is good, okay? But as long as you're playing this back and forth game, it means that everybody is kind of on even keel. There's a punch, there's a move, there's a counter punch, and we all are kind of like doing this little dance. This is why in the beginning of this year or last year, I have a horrible mind for remembering recent history. So just when I say last 6 months, know that I could mean anywhere from the last 6 months to 5 years, okay? A year or whatever ago, when Israel and Iran were shooting missiles at each other and people were blowing each other up, it was still like very, 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 very contained, right? Israel would do an attack. Iran would do a counterattack. Us in the West would make fun of Iran, saying, you guys think you had a huge attack? You didn't even bomb anybody. The reason why the Iranian leadership is saying that is because they can sell to their public, we fucked them up, guys. We did it. Yeah, and then everybody feels good and everybody walks away thinking that they've won, which is good because if everybody thinks they've won, then that means that we're all even and we're all good. Everybody's good. Everybody's gotten vengeance, and so everybody's like, ledgers are balanced. It's important to understand this and to not be a retard who thinks that everybody is fucking fighting at full strength and this is just the farthest anybody's been able to go, okay? If you think that everybody's fighting at full strength and nobody's been able to win yet, you might end up in a situation where a retard comes into office like Trump and he goes, why don't we just fucking kill all the Iranian leaders, right? Like, what have they done in the recent attack, right? They kind of hit an airbase. They bombed some shit. They haven't fucking done shit. They probably can't do shit. Let's just go fuck them up. So when, or actually worse than that, because Trump doesn't have an original thought, Netanyahu might say that to him because he knows Trump is fucking retarded. And nobody around Trump has the balls to say anything to him to slow this guy down. So now they're like, oh shit, well fucking, I don't know, let's fucking go. Let's see. Let's try it. When you start blowing up and killing all of their leaders, you're not playing a tit for tat, even keel, geopolitical dance anymore. You've changed this into a war of survival, a war of extinction. Well, now that these guys are fighting for their life, now there's a whole bunch more options on the table in terms of how they want to respond. And one of those options was the Strait of Hormuz. People seem to not understand this exchange when they're like, and then Iran did the unthinkable. They closed the Strait of Hormuz. They did the unthinkable. Well, yeah, of course. But it's like saying, I can't believe Russia nuked the United States after the U.S. has already launched nuclear bombs. Like, well, of course. What do you expect them to do? Nobody seems to understand this dynamic and how crazy it was that Trump decided, I'm just going to fucking start exterminating all the leadership in Iran and we'll see where we go from there. There is not going to be a proportional response at that point. Well, it will be proportional, but that proportion has now been dramatically increased. Now, like, we're fighting a much, much, much different kind of conflict. But whatever.
Hormuz, we're going to bomb Kharkiv, and said various things. He said, we're going to take the Strait of Hormuz, we're going to bomb Kharg Island, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. It's like King Lear, isn't it? I will do such things on the blasted heath. And of course, he didn't do any of them because presumably his generals came along and said, sir, we can take Kharg Island, but it's going to take boots on the ground and blood in the water. And he said, I'm not doing that. He wanted a war done.
But with October 7th and Hezbollah on Israel's border, it's been an existential war for Israel all along. But you don't seem to give them as much credence in the dynamic. I don't, because it's not an existential war for Israel. As long as every other, like, the stable countries around Israel prefer Israel's existence. The leadership does, at least. And the United States prefers Israel's existence. And Europe generally preferred Israel's existence. I don't know now. Because the powers that were fighting Israel didn't really have much to do to threaten the existence of Israel. Now, I know in Israel you guys all tell yourselves a different story, but that's just a fact. That being said, right, like, if Hamas or if Hezbollah could genocide every Jew and wipe out everybody in Israel, they would do it 100%. Obviously, I know that. And also, I think Israel had every right to fucking respond in the fashion that they did, at least for 6 months or whatever, when they launched their war into Gaza, for 100%, for sure. But
water. And he said, I'm not doing that. He wanted a war done in 3 or 4 weeks. The Israelis, I have to say, as a caveat, I don't know whether this is absolutely true because I only know what I'm reading and what I'm hearing. I'm trying to form a conclusion based on reading very widely, listening to a lot of people. What I'm reading, what I've read, is that the Israelis said to him right at the beginning, in our view, the only way to neutralize the Iranian regime is to take them out. And we can only do that with a war that lasts a year. And which Trump said,
I kind of agree with that, Silverine 1914. And I don't know why it hasn't happened yet. And it's a little bit scary. Well, I'm not going to speak anything into existence in the fucking Middle East like I do with Hassan's rhetoric every day. If I was an Israeli, I would be terrified of, I don't know how it would happen, but if somehow Hamas or Hezbollah were to gain access to the amount of drone tech, I don't know if you'd say drone tech or just the amount of drones that are going back and forth between Ukraine and Russia, that would be terrifying because like how many you could level what, like 4 huge cities in Israel and you've destroyed so much, like that would just be insane. It would not be a good time. Yeah, I don't even know. Would they nuke? Who would they nuke? It would be, yeah. How do you differentiate between existential and very, very costly / inconvenient? Well, existential is when you don't have the money or the time to respond without the entire downfall of your country or regime. Like Hezbollah being on the border isn't an existential threat, but it requires excavating tens of thousands of buildings from the north because they can't defend them. What's an acceptable response here? I think it's... well, now you're looping me into my uber Zionist takes. I think bombing the fuck out of southern Lebanon is completely defensible. That's the most defensible thing in the world. I don't know why, and maybe I don't know if situations on the ground have changed. I don't think they have. I don't know why Israel thinks that it's a good idea to bomb Beirut. I think that's kind of fucking retarded. But fucking bombing the fuck out of everything in southern Lebanon, fuck that shit. I think it's fine. I think there's probably a lot of people in Lebanon even that wouldn't care that much. But as soon as you start taking that shit up to Beirut, well, now I don't know. That didn't work in the past for Israel. I don't know why they think it would work now or what's changed, but
you've got to be kidding me. No way. 3 weeks, 4 weeks, max. And the Israelis said, well, then you can't do this. But we will adapt to whatever you want to do. And so they did what they did. So along comes,
Did the USA get lucky that Japan surrendered? No, I don't know. I don't know the most about World War II. Okay, so again, take everything I say with a grain of salt. I'm 95% sure that Japan surrendered because they saw the fucking Soviets coming, and they were like, "Where all of our shit is getting." Because remember, a couple decades ago, these guys like fucking murdered all the Russian czars or whatever. And if the Soviets, if Russia got to Japan, that whole royal family thought they were getting fucking murked 1,000,000,000%. Also, not to understate the impact of the nuclear bomb, but like I think people have this idea that we bombed their cities and it's like 500 Japanese dead this day, and then we bombed this city, and then like, oh my god, after a month of bombing, this whole city was blown up, 1,000 Japanese dead, and then we bombed it was like 1,500 Japanese dead, and then it was like 1 nuke, 50,000 in Hiroshima gone. The nuclear bombs weren't even the biggest bombings that we did. It was the firebombing of Tokyo, which is like I think like 100,000 people were killed. Fucking Japan cities were getting fucking razed to the fucking ground. These cities were demolished. Now, the nuke was like a big deal. It was like, oh shit, that's like one big bomb. That's pretty crazy. But like their shit was fucked. It wasn't like, fuck, we can't set Japan on fire fast enough. We need more arms. And how are we going to do it? Maybe the nukes. Japan was getting fucked completely. So I don't know how much like they saw the nukes coming and they were like, oh my God, that's some crazy shit. I think it was more they saw like the Russians coming and they're like, oh shit, that's some real bad shit. Also, like America having a say over what goes on with the end of the war versus having like the Russians or maybe the Chinese or any other Southeast Asia having a say would also probably be a lot worse for the Japanese. Because I don't think up to that point, I could be wrong, but up to that point, I don't really think did we have much relationship at all with Japan? I don't know how much Americans like hated the Japanese other than like stereotypes. It's not like we had like any history or anything going on, but I'm pretty sure Japan had like the craziest relationship with the entire Southeast Asian, whatever fuck in East, whatever continent, where they thought they were racially superior. They wanted to go to the mainland and fucking rape and murder all the inferior Asian people. It was just like some wacky, wild shit, but I don't know. What are you going to do, man? Why did they attack Pearl Harbor? Because I think at that point, America was pretty aggressively supporting Russia with like Lend-Lease. I think Britain with Lend-Lease. And then I think we were also refusing to sell oil or trade other materials with Japan or any of them at that point. And so the trade shit, it was obviously we kind of like chosen a side, and I don't know.
To whatever you want to do, then you can't do this. But we will adapt to whatever you want to do. And so they did.
Oh, we were supplying China too. Okay.
What they did. So along comes, they've done what they've done. They've made these amazing gains. The Iranians still have a Kharg Island and they have America by the throat. Now what do? If you're Trump, you say, oh, we've won. That's it. That's it. Let's have a negotiation now about the terms of winning. Excuse me? He had said, it's there.
It seems like most countries just want Israel to infinitely deal with extremist attacks and do nothing so that the public doesn't get upset. The problem is just one of like adaptation, and people adapt as much as they do. People adapt as much as they need to, right? Like, in the beginning of let's see if we can figure this out. If green is your politics strength, okay, Israel started off with their like political understanding and know-how like here. And then I feel like it kind of dropped off here. Like if we do like 1948 as here, one of the things that comes up so much is the first prime minister of Israel, the leader of all the Jewish people before the state was founded, this Ben-Gurion guy, like was obsessed with trying to get actual formal agreements with Western states to secure the existence of Israel. Earlier you had this in 1917 or 1914, the Balfour Declaration, which was basically saying like, we promise we will get a homeland for the Jewish people at some point, maybe, right? And then they kind of had that when they were shipping people into Palestine. But Ben-Gurion knew that it was really important to get like formal agreements with people in the West in order to make sure that the nation of Israel had like an actual peaceful, secure state. That is it 58 or 56? We'll guess 56. There's this thing that popped up, the Suez Crisis or whatever. I think was more of Israel trying to gain favor, I think, with Britain and France, who worked with them to kind of like sneakily set up this war with Egypt over trade and the Straits, and formally recognizing the Suez Canal as a place where the Egyptian leadership would never block off trade. But like Ben-Gurion, I think, and Israeli leadership saw this as like, okay, we're going to finally get a formal agreement with Western nations. It's going to be awesome. Okay, it's going to be awesome. We're going to finally get an agreement with them, but that it never really materialized. And I think also at this point, the U.S. didn't want to deal with anything. This whole war stopped because the U.S. told Israel and Britain and France to completely fuck off, and they needed to fucking leave the Sinai and get the fuck out. And then eventually they did, which made Nasser in Egypt feel like he was like tough shit. He's like, oh yeah, I fucking fought you motherfuckers off, and gave him a ton of credibility in the world. But also at this point, okay, so when 67 happened, right? This is like the worst moment in Israeli history when this war starts, basically, because Israel has found itself in the situation that it never wanted to be in, which is every single surrounding Arab state wants to kill us, and we have absolutely no formal agreements with the West in order to secure the existence of our state. So like it's the worst thing that could have ever happen. But for better or for worse, Israel actually ends up destroying everything in this war, okay? And this is like, depending on how you want to analyze it, I don't know. This is like the peak point of Israeli history, or it's like the worst point of Israeli history, because this is when the Jewish people go from being like, we are a smart people who have like done everything we can to secure the power and the existence and everything of our homeland, to we're actually God's chosen people, motherfuckers, and now your shit is about to get fucked. And I feel like at this point, Israeli political understanding just like disappears. I feel like past this point, I feel like Israel just has no concept of how to be mindful of other country leadership. So, for instance, between like 67 and 73, and even prior to 67, I think, you have like the Jordanian king is like secretly negotiating and trying to work with Israeli leadership because he doesn't want to see a war break out between the two states. I think the prior Jordanian king had been assassinated, I think in Jerusalem, by a Palestinian extremist in 1952, I think. I think there was another assassination attempt in Egypt in the 60s, maybe. It's just like bad. The Jordanian king is not a big fan of the Palestinian people, okay? But also, Jordan absorbed a fuck ton of Palestinians. They were like 2/3 of their population, because after 48, when Jordan came in, and then Transjordan, when they took over the West Bank, that Judea-Samaria area, the West Bank of the Jordan River, they also annexed them formally and made all of those Palestinian citizens and all this other shit. But okay, so you have this, okay? Then you have your Arabs who are politically and militarily retarded. They I don't know if it's because the Ottomans ran everything, but they don't know how to, they are politically retarded. You know, they're trying to make some pan-Arab state. Nasser thinks he's like tough shit. Remember that tit for tat thing I talked about? Like, there's this huge disagreement over like who started the 6-day war. Like, wasn't it a preemptive attack? And it's like, yeah, it kind of was. But Nasser was out here saying that they were going to eliminate every fucking Jew on the planet, and they were going to fucking blow up behind every blade of grass. They were going to kill a Jew. It was just like some unhinged shit. But the reason why Nasser was saying it was because he had to talk himself up to be like hot shit. But I think the Jews probably took it seriously because they were completely fucked if they got destroyed, right? Because at this point they had no allies or whatever else. But then I think after Nasser dies, and then their new leader comes in, the Sadat dude in Egypt, I feel like the Arabs start to finally learn politics and learn military a bit better. And they start to get better at this like political know-how, in that if you look at, for instance, like the Palestinians and the way that they do propaganda, the Palestinians and the way they communicate to the West, you look at places like Qatar and how they do propaganda in American institutions. Suddenly Arabs, also in large part, or at least in some part due to the fact that the Soviets were helping them learn propaganda, which they did, like overtly, like we know that they were working with them to do propaganda. The Arabs learned how to communicate like to the West more, and how to form political alliances and work. Like, how do you get, like, think about it. You have Sunni extremist Islamists who are Hamas working with a brand, kind of being supported by a sect of, I'm trying to think, for the Houthis, Al-Haidi, was that the family, or was that the sect of Islam, I think, which was a Shia kind of offshoot or whatever. And these guys are working together. And then you've got Iran with the Ayatollah, and then like Hezbollah, which is founded by Iran, which I believe Hezbollah would be Shia. I don't know what they're over, Shia something or whatever. But I'm saying you have a lot of different people working together, because the Arabs are doing like politics and like, is it Zaidi? Is that Al-Zaidi? Is that Zaidi might have been the branch of Shia Islam or whatever for these people. But they're working together and they're doing politics. The Arabs are doing politics, and they're having a better understanding of like the military stuff too. So all this to say that I feel like the Jewish politicking ability has disappeared to where Israel has. I'm sorry, this is all in response to that question of like the rest of the world expects Israel to do blah, blah, blah. The problem is Israel has no mind for politics anymore because they have no consideration for what's going on with their allies. They just seem to have no consideration for what's going on with the people around them. And they make it very, very, very hard for people to want to work with them, right? When Sadat, right, the leader of Egypt, and Egypt was like the up-and-coming Egypt was like the fucking Nazi Germany of the Arab world, if I'm being negative. Or you could say the United States of the Arab world if you want to be positive, I guess. In terms of like, we're going to create this, fuck Baghdad and fuck what they're doing up there in Iraq and the Baghdad pact and all this shit. We're going to be the pan-Arab state. I'm going to be the leader, Nasser. I'm going to fucking kill the Jews because I'm the god and that's like the ultimate like Arab achievement. Okay? They went from that shit to being retarded and to being like the most like antagonistic towards Israel nation on the planet to Sadat, who was like, I'm going to come to your Congress and I'm going to make a speech about how awesome it would be if the Jewish people in Egypt could form an alliance while you're currently holding on to the entire Sinai, right? Because remember, at this time, people always talk about the occupied territories as the West Bank, the Golan Heights, and the Gaza Strip. But Israel had the entire Sinai after the 67 war too. But Sadat went, he made that speech. What the fuck is Israel going to do? They got completely politically outmaneuvered here. They have to make peace, which I think is good. I think it was a good thing. But like, yeah, I don't know. I have a severe distaste for how little consideration conservative Israeli politicians have for, or maybe it's just Netanyahu and his government have for the surrounding people. I feel like the last good Israeli conservative prime minister was Sharon. As much as people hated Sharon on both sides in Israel, especially after the disengagement of the Gaza Strip, like Sharon knew, and he said as much, that the West Bank is going to be the end of Israel because they just can't do it. The demographics aren't there, and the occupation, and back when he was in office, it was like 500,000 Jews less lived there, but there was no possible way that this was ever going to work out in Israel's favor. And yeah, I don't know. I think that this is sad to me to see this type of, I guess, political know-how kind of being lost. I feel when Israel comes to communicate to this world, and that the Arabs have somehow picked that up better and learned it better. But what are you going to do? Who cares? It sounds like you're making the case for Israel to beat the shit out of everyone to make them chill. Back when their opponents were politically retarded, yes, I think, peace through strength or whatever worked. But when their opponents became more sophisticated, and at some point, you just can't win wars where it's you against the entire world. They don't have enough people. 7 million Jews are really going to fight against, what, 1 billion? I don't know how many, what's the collective population of the Middle East, the greater Middle East region? Like, can you give examples where Israel did fucked up shit rather than being smart, like before the 67 war? I think Israel navigated pre-67. They were superior militarily, and they had a better mind for politics. I don't think they made many mistakes prior to the 67 war. I'm sure when I say mistakes, I'm thinking like mistakes. I don't mean like they did bad things, like your massacres or whatever, but... Can you give an example of what they should do? Well, the problem is I don't know what the political appetite exists in Israel now for anything. But I mean, like the thing... I really do think there's something to be said for having somebody to grumble against who forces two people to come to the table for peace. Like... I hope I'm not reading too much into that Middle Eastern book or whatever, but with that one old Jewish guy that worked in I don't remember, Shin Bet or the older guy, the Dr. Kadar, or whatever the fuck that guy's name was. But like, me and my brother, or me and my friend, having a disagreement on something and having to come to an agreement where both of us are going to be unhappy, I don't know if we can do that between ourselves. But if a related, distant, like a distantly, like equidistant third party can come to us and make us figure shit out, and we can both kind of like, fuck that guy, but I guess whatever, right? Like I feel like one of the great I I feel like the greatest strength for Europe and why America leading Europe is so great is because everybody in Europe can kind of sort of mutually hate the Americans for whatever reason. But I feel like it allows European countries to coexist and work together because like it's America is kind of in charge and what are we going to do? Whereas, and I hope I could be totally wrong about this, and I hope I'm really wrong about this, but like I feel like a Europe trying to lead itself is going to be, now you don't have America bullying you from afar. Now you have like, are we really led by the French or are we really led by Germany? Is that really about to happen? Because now like all of your older ethnic rivalries or national rivalries or your post World War I and II, like there's so much more relationship historically, I feel, that kind of can exist between European nations that now when you don't have a distant third party like America to kind of like rule on things, well, now you're kind of fucked. So for Israel, somebody's like, what should Israel do now? I feel like it should be America, like Jimmy Carter did with Egypt and Israel. It was Jimmy Carter who was the president who was presiding over the Camp David Accords or whatever when they finally made that first peace agreement between Egypt and Israel. And it was a big commitment by Jimmy Carter to make that work. It was a huge commitment. The closest thing we ever got to that was Bill Clinton with the Palestinians and with Israel, which was close, but he didn't quite get there, unfortunately. But there has to be big commitment, I feel, from a equidistant third party to make Israel make peace with the Palestinians. And for that, Israeli politicians have to be amenable to working with other countries. And it just feels like Israel wants to go it alone right now. But Destiny, seems like a bit of cope to always reference Israel's failure of Western messaging. Based on what you have said, the Occam's razor answer here is that Israel is doing things that are less sympathetic than Hamas and Hezbollah, and thus the global community is coming down on them. To suggest they get outmaneuvered on this front after acknowledging a one before domination seems implausible, and also happens to arrive at the conclusion where Israel's collective morality on the Israel-Palestine issue is not in jeopardy. Israel unquestionably conducts itself in morally superior to every single surrounding enemy, and it's literally not even fucking close. The only reason you think that is because of how much Israel has failed to message and because of how successfully the Palestinians have succeeded in their messaging. To their credit for propaganda purposes, I guess. But like, when you send out your little boy to go and get killed by an Israeli soldier, knowing that that's exactly the outcome that's going to happen, and you're willing to sit there on an iPhone and record it, like that is a level of propaganda that the Israelis just don't even know how to function on. There's no moral equivalence between the two sides. It's really not even remotely close in terms of how they conduct warfare. Now you can argue that the Palestinians are the lesser force, so of course they're going to be on some more kind of like fuck shit guerrilla warfare stuff, which may or may not be fair, but to pretend that like, well, maybe it really is just that Israel actually conducts itself way worse is not even remotely close to true. I'm sorry, but better than surrounding countries, but as a model of democracy in the Middle East, shouldn't we hold them to our standard, not theirs? Your standard is somewhat of a product of the environment that you exist in. So for instance, one of the important things that I do is I breathe because I need the oxygen in the atmosphere to power the metabolism in my body. It's an important thing for me. If I were to dunk my head underwater, or if a friend of mine were to dunk his head underwater, you would never look at that friend and go like, well, if you're trying to live up to the same standards that Steven is, shouldn't you be breathing too? No, he's not going to breathe. His fucking head is underwater. He's going to fucking die if he breathes, okay? To pretend that Israel should play by the same standards that America does, which I agree that it should, but what standards do you think America would be playing by if Canada and Mexico were launching rocket attacks at us every single fucing day? Like, the countries would be obliterated. Like, they don't do that for a good reason. The IDF, one of the reasons why the IDF, now my big pro-Zionist thing, one of the reasons why the IDF doesn't like it when people go into the West Bank is because they know that if they go into some Palestinian city, they could end up fucking killed, they could end up in trouble. It's not going to be good. They don't even fucking want you going there. They don't even want you fucking going there because of the potential international incident that fuck shit can happen. Now, not to say that bad shit can't happen to you if you go to the wrong place in Mexico. It could. Generally speaking, like if cartel members ever see you as an American citizen in Mexico, they leave you the fuck alone or they escort you back to, because you need to get the fuck out of wherever you're at where you're not supposed to be. But cartel members are not going to be murdering American fucking citizens in Mexico because they know that that's going to open up a whole can of nightmare shit on them if they engage in that behavior. There's a difference in the expectation of back and forth. Destiny, but isn't the reason we have rules of war so we avoid exactly what you describe? Yes, but the problem is that the rules of war are not enforced on Arabs in the Middle East, and they really never have been. That's the issue. So you can't have rules that only one side plays by. It doesn't make sense. So what are you gonna do? You know, you gotta meme out. How do you fight against the leftist maximalist position on Israel-Palestine, become the omnipresent opinion within the left of center discourse? You can do it. You just have to have a strong messaging apparatus. I mean, there is a reasonable position to carve out with relation to Israel-Palestine. Like, I think giving them aid and giving Gaza aid is fine, but we should obviously condition it on certain behaviors or how they conduct themselves in war, or it might be standards of. I mean, we could have a lot of leverage over Israel, but you need an intelligent leader to lead your country to even know like what levers they need to pull and what behaviors they would need to change. But we can't. Trump can't do that. He's retarded. So.
Of winning, excuse me, he had said, you know, it's let's have a negotiation now about the terms of winning. Excuse me, he had said, you know, it's they have absolutely surrendered. They are begging for a deal. Well, which is it? Which is it? Have they surrendered? Is it, or if they've surrendered, it's not a deal. If they've surrendered, why is there a negotiation? What is there to negotiate if it's an absolute surrender? None of it made any sense. It was all total rubbish. The bottom line was, it's quite clear, he wanted out. He wanted an end to it. And he wanted to be able to say, we've won. And consequently, they're now giving them everything. In this famous...
Destiny, Ukraine plays by the rules of war while Russia doesn't. Israel absolutely could and should. I've seen a lot of videos that are questionable. Don't make any fucking mistake here. I think Ukraine should defend itself in whatever manner possible. But there are definitely videos where it's like, I don't know about that one. I'm not too sure about that one, Chief. The injured soldier with the drone flying up and blowing him up over and over again. Or I don't know if Ukraine has used mines at all, but I think are mines always there's a Are mines always illegal? I don't remember if they are or aren't. Fuck. There's a rule on this site relating to mines and stuff. Maybe just anti-personnel mines are illegal, but big mines aren't. There's like questionable behavior in terms of like strict adherence to rules of war. There's also a question related to... like, can you bomb, no, there's not actually, there wouldn't be. Like bombing power plants and stuff, because technically it can be considered civilian infrastructure, but it's obviously used to continue the fight. So like in an instance of total war, where both sides are using their entire economy and everything to go to war with the other side, like what's fair game for targeting at that point? Now, Ukrainians, especially because they're fighting a defensive war, haven't engaged in like the mass deportation of children, like I think Russia did from, I think, Mariupol and other areas, or the mass like capture and then torture, rape, and mass burials of Russian citizens like Russia has to Ukrainian citizens when they've captured cities. Like the behavior on Russia's side is abhorrent. Also, Russia is the aggressor on the war. But I don't know if I would say there's like a strict adherence. Anytime like total war comes up, you're in a very weird place where you're kind of fighting for the existence of your entire country. So people are going to fight like a little bit more desperately than just. But then also, even so, like it's also different too, though, because like Russia is like a real state with a real military and real political consequences that Ukraine can stack itself up against. Whereas, you know, the Gaza Strip and terrorist groups are not the same. They don't have the same considerations.
Memorandum of Understanding, which is not a deal. It ushers in 60 days of negotiation. What is there to negotiate? You don't negotiate with people who believe they are put on earth by God to destroy America. America doesn't negotiate.
Is it fair to say that Israel has to either accept that it is an apartheid state or that Palestine is militarily occupied? I hate the term apartheid. It just refers to something that's so much more specific than whatever you want to say for Israel. But I broadly speaking, I do agree that Israel can't have it both ways when it comes to the occupied territories, because they want to make it sound like it's not an occupied territory, but like it clearly is under their, I don't know, it's not under their administration, but it's subject to all of their laws and, or not, no, I shouldn't even say that. It's controlled territory. It is militarily blocked off, at the very least for the Gaza Strip, and large parts of it are occupied when it comes to the West Bank. So, yeah, I don't know. Israel can't have it both ways there. Like, I think that the situation for Israel and the West Bank and the Gaza Strip, I think it's like an acceptable situation for like 5 years, but not for like 70 years. At that point, you're in some very weird, legally mutated, geopolitically untenable, where I don't know what the fuck is. It's just too, at that point, I don't know what the fuck the situation is anymore. It's very, very, very not acceptable, yeah.
With those people. It's non-negotiable.
You seem to hate any term that actually has meaning to the conversation, but makes Israel look like other shit countries that act a certain way. I don't like terms that take away like understanding from the conversation. And when people start to load up words like apartheid and genocide and everything else, you've removed the ability to have any reasonable discussion on how to bring about an update to the current state of affairs. You've chosen your most evil normatively loaded words, and now you're ready to go to, demagoguery war with them without having any question of what any policy recommendations or whatever. You just have nothing, which is why nobody actually ever really talks about policy or anything with how to make any of these things better.
You don't negotiate with people who believe they are put on earth by God to destroy America. America doesn't negotiate with those people. It's non-negotiable. So you have this ludicrous situation. And he has to find a scapegoat, and his scapegoat is Israel, because there is this complication in Lebanon. Now, people in Britain have very little idea about the relationship of Lebanon to all of this. They have very little idea because the media never tells them anything that is important to know about this whole.
Can you explain why apartheid isn't appropriate? I thought it just meant like a system of segregation. Go read about apartheid in South Africa. Apartheid was the concept of like absolute racial domination of one group over all other groups, where they were sectioned off into living into totally different parts. They didn't have the same rights. They weren't allowed to do any of the same thing. It was like, what was it called? Bantustan's or whatever. Nowadays, people liken apartheid to just like racism. Or, I think was Muin Rabbani, did he say this, or was it other people who were trying to say that like Jim Crow laws were like apartheid? I was like, no, apartheid is not all segregation. It refers to like a very specific top-down thing from the country of South Africa.
Or Iranian war. But Lebanon is very important because Lebanon houses the Hezbollah, which is the proxy army of Iran. Hezbollah is an unwanted guest in Lebanon, but nevertheless has established itself as such a powerful force it can't be easily dislodged. From Lebanon, the Hezbollah has, over many, many years, been firing missiles into northern Israel, potentially causing northern Israel to become depopulated. So scroll on, and we get to a ceasefire in Lebanon. A couple of weeks ago, was it? Something like that. And
Jim Crow was 99% apartheid. If you want to fight over the 1%, that's strange. If you think that, you just don't know the significance of any of the things, and you just have lived a wonderfully awesome life, which I agree we all have. If you think that, that's just not even remotely close to true. Like, Jim Crow represents like a great advancement in American legal understanding, because what it basically said was our official federal government is not going to recognize that black people are second-class citizens or inferior citizens in the way that you want them to be anymore. So now, if you want to make black people second-class citizens, you're going to have to engage in some kind of weird nibble around the edges fucky shit in order to exclude them from the parts of life that they should be included in. Whereas in an apartheid state, you don't need Jim Crow laws. You just have your federal government enforcing second-class citizenship because they're not even considered the same as for South Africa, for your white South Africans. It's a one system is a huge advancement from one to the next. It's not racism, and it's not the abolition of all boundaries, obviously, between different races of people, but it's a massive difference between the two.
The Hezbollah behave as Iran and the Hezbollah always behave when they sign or when they agree to a ceasefire. They ignore it. They ignore it. A ceasefire is merely a means of weakening the other side, and they just ignore it. So they continue to fire missiles at Israel in the last couple of weeks, and they continue to attack Israeli troops, and they kill 5 Israeli soldiers. I think it was last week. None of this is reported in Britain. Instead, because Israel says we got to fight back, and President Trump says you're not going to fight back, because if you fight back, the Iranians are telling me that in order for my deal to be done, you've got to come out of Lebanon. And the Israelis say, sorry, we can't do that. In the British media, this is Israel breaking the ceasefire and being aggressive. Now, this is wicked, wicked stuff, in my view, and greatly adds to the fact that for an unpleasant number of British people, they really do believe Israel is the aggressor in the region. And that's another issue, but it's related. They just don't know what's going on. So you have a situation where President Trump is using the Israelis as the scapegoat to explain why Iran is not cooperating. Otherwise, they would just be all friends together. This is ludicrous. And it's tremendously dangerous because everybody with half a brain and some knowledge of what's going on, including the Gulf states who are inclined to be the great allies of the West against Iran, are looking on in absolute horror. They know exactly what's happening here, that Iran is being allowed by America to reconstitute itself as a power in the region and in the world. And they're absolutely in the firing line because Iran has been chucking the ballistic missiles at them as well.
What do you think about how virtually no Western country is holding Iran accountable for attacking civilian vessels in the Strait of Hormuz and instead blames the U.S. and Israel? Isn't this another example of double standards for the West versus the non-West? No, because when Iran wants to do bad, seedy shit, they should be using proxies to do it. If Iran, the country, is doing it, that's not the normal state of affairs. Iran, the country, is doing it because, as I said before, the United States and Israel decided to engage Iran in a war of extinction. So, of course, Iran is going to pull, out all the stops. Who's going to reasonably tell Iran, like, hey, I don't think you should be responding this way to your annihilation? So at that point, you're fucked. So, like, the bind now, the problem is that she's kind of right in that the state of affairs that we're looking to set up they're not really acceptable for Israel. But it's hard to be sympathetic to Israel because Israel thought that Iran was going to be regime changed. That's what they thought would happen. They thought that the United States would be able to basically enforce a regime change in Iran, and that didn't happen. We weren't able to do that. So now Israel's like, okay, well, hold on. It can't be that all of these proxies around us and Iran is going to be allowed to rebuild because that's going to be really bad for us. And it's like, yes, it was really bad for you when Iran survived the attacks between you and America. Now you're fucked because you just tried to kill a dude. It's like the equivalent of, like, imagine you're in a house with a guy and you pull out a gun and you're like, you know what? I have had enough of your shit. Fuck you. And imagine this guy is like 300 pounds and you're 140 pounds soaking wet and you got another like 200-pound friend next to you. And he's like, oh, okay, yeah, I guess. Let's both take out our guns and shoot him. Or let's say the small dude hands the big gun. It's like, okay, we're going to shoot this guy. And then you both go to pull the trigger, but you forgot to load the guns. And then they both go click and they're empty. Well, now that 300-pound dude is looking at you and he's like, well, that guy wants to come over and beat the shit out of you. Well, fuck, you just tried to kill the guy, but you just didn't have the bullets and the gun to do it. Of course he's going to try to beat the shit out of you. And now your other friend, your 200-pound friend, is like, oh, I don't know if I can take him with you. Maybe not. No, I just want to get the fuck out of here. Well, what are you going to do? I mean, you just try to kill the guy. What do you expect?
When you come at the king, you best not miss. Did you see Obsession?
No, I have to wait till it comes out in bullshit.
Damn.
Yeah.
This weekend, then.
Dusty, do you think Jim Crow was really not apartheid without extra steps? The fact that they use sneaky methods to effect the same results, is that big of a difference in your mind? Yes. But if you don't understand it then or don't agree with that, that's fine. We just fundamentally view the world differently.
So they are horrified. They can see what's happening. They can see that Trump is giving Iran the ability to become again the great threat to the region and to the world. And it is beyond tragic and infuriating that so many people in Britain can't see this.
Melanie, hold on a second. I mean, let me give a wide perspective of where we come on this issue from and how we've covered this over time. Because I think we may find that we very rarely, but we disagree profoundly on this issue for reasons I'll articulate, and then we'll get into it. So when the 12-day war happened, bombing Iranian nuclear facilities, wonderful. Francis and I were completely in favor of this. Iran shouldn't get a nuclear weapon, wonderful. When this conflict started, we were in the US and we were talking to all kinds of people on the show, people who were for it, people who were against it, and hearing the explanations. And we were also talking to people off the air, people who work in administration, people who know how these decisions were made. And at that point, Francis and I think it's fair to say, shifted our perspective on this whole issue. And for one reason, which was that we were persuaded by arguments that were made by people like Robert Pape on our show, who explained that basically this situation that we currently find ourselves in was inevitable. And it was inevitable because of what he calls the escalation trap, which is essentially that no matter how much the United States raises the stakes, the Iranians have an ability to inflict more damage that the US cares about more than they care about the damage that's been inflicted on them.
Right.
In other words, if you put boots on the ground on Kharg Island and you lose 300 Marines, well, that's bad enough for an American audience, for an American.
Is that a distinction without a difference? Is it worth fighting against the apartheid label just to be technically right? Would you rather live in a society where a man sits at a table with his wife who is using makeup to cover up a black eye, and like everybody at the table is like kind of a little uncomfortable, but you go through dinner and you just kind of move on? Or would you rather live in a society where a wife and a man get into a disagreement, the man turns to the side and beats the shit out of the wife, everybody watches, and everybody kind of laughs along, and then you just like continue dinner as normal? Like, which society would you rather live in? This idea that, well, both of them are kind of the same because the women gets hit in both is such a childlike view of how everything in society works. Like, if a society is willing to accept and codify in federal law, like actual second-class citizenship, versus a federal government has decided that we're not going to do this anymore, and then a whole bunch of other states and institutions or parts of cities or whatever are trying to like, okay, well, fuck these blacks. We're going to figure out a way to fuck them over or whatever. We're trying to say, well, this is basically the same thing. I don't know what to say to you. You're the same kind of person who's like, we either need to have our citizens rotting in ditches or we need Medicare for all, and there's no in between. Like, it's just,
public that's very tired of war, let's be honest, after Iraq and Afghanistan.
Indeed.
But then the Iranians will retaliate by destroying desalination.
Trump handed the Iranians a crowbar they could use to drive a wedge between the U.S. and Israel. They know Trump wants a deal. Now, every time Israel responds to Hezbollah, Trump gets mad. Sure, but the problem is that crowbar that Trump gave the Iranians was the same one that Israel and Trump were using to beat the shit out of the Iranians first. And then they dropped it afterwards because they thought Iran was dead. And then Iran stood up and he took the crowbar. That's the issue. If I would feel a lot differently about this, I would have sympathy, not more sympathy, because right now I have basically zero sympathy. I would have sympathy for the Israelis if Trump had decided that we were going to go to fucking war with Iran of his own volition because he's a crazy fucking retard or a crazy lunatic. But he's not a crazy lunatic. He's a malleable retard. And Netanyahu tried to malleate him. That's not the word. What's the verb form of malleable? There must be a to morph or to make into something. Mold? Is it really mold?
Mold.
Netanyahu used Trump, and then he failed in that manipulation, and now Israel's, I don't know what they're going to do.
Nation plans in the Middle East and doing other things.
But nuclear bomb now, so.
Well, yeah, who knows?
That are much more damaging, and of course, keeping the strait closed. And so Robert Pape's argument, and we were persuaded by, people talk about audience capture, like our audience didn't like us having that conversation, but we just look at the logic of people's arguments, and his argument made more sense. And interestingly, Batya Ungasagon, who we love and respect, who we had on the show, she came on saying how we're all wrong, Robert Paper's wrong. She's now done a mea culpa on her show saying, actually, you guys were right about this. She was messaging me about this the other day. Sorry that it's taken a long time. What I'm trying to lay out to you is this. What would you have Trump do? What's he supposed to do? Escalate further? Put boots on the ground? Okay, fine. Let's say we do that. Robert Pape's argument is the moment you do.
Your focus on the codified law versus the lived experience is probably where you're losing people. For example, I think I'd rather live as a black South African under apartheid than a Palestinian under Israeli occupation. I can't speak to the general experience of apartheid South Africa, but I'm sure there were probably parts of a black apartheid South African experience that were better than a Palestinian living in Gaza's experience. And I'm sure there are probably lots of West Bank Palestinian experiences that are probably way better than a lot of black South African experiences. The goal of calling one thing, the way that your question is phrased, though, I think betrays the reason why I don't like using these terms, is because people view everything on a sliding scale, right? Okay. Well, we'd have systemic racism and microaggressions. Well, what's worse than that? Things like Jim Crow. Oh, what's worse than that? Legalized separation of people. Oh, what's worse than that? Apartheid. So it's like the worse you go, the more apartheid it becomes, and the better you go, the more equity-driven it gets. But that's not really how it works. Apartheid is just a different thing. It's just a different thing, right? I'm sure that there are... you could find, what would even be an equivalent? I know for a fact that there are going to be some Jews that had better experiences in concentration camps than some Americans had experiences in American prisons. I'm sure that there's going to be thousands, maybe even tens of thousands of cases, or maybe even hundreds of thousands of cases where that is the fact of the matter. But that doesn't mean that concentration camps are better than American prisons. It's a different thing, a different experience, a different set of things going on. And when you call things apartheid, you completely and totally miss everything going on with Israel and Palestine, and you just lose the ability to have a conversation about anything about it, because I don't know.
Do that, it becomes for Iran not just a war of survival of the regime, but a war of survival.
Right.
In which case, they go harder, they do more damage. Okay. And now, final point, the global economy has pretended to absorb the shock when it comes to oil, fertilizer, and all these other things quite well, mainly because we've run down our stockpiles of these things. This goes on any longer, the global economy is really going to suffer. And final point. The midterms. When we had Ted Cruz on our show during that America trip, he said, look, if we're still talking about this when the midterms come around, we have failed very badly. And that timeline, I thought at the time, if the Iranians know that you worry about the midterms, they will hold out until the midterms, and then you're screwed, and then you can't do anything.
Absolutely.
So what would you have Trump do?
Okay, so the bottom line is this. If you follow the Robert Pape argument, and many do, many make a similar kind of argument, you're basically saying there is nothing that can be done against Iran because it will always have the upper hand. And so what follows from that?
They got the mountains.
You have to negotiate.
True.
No. There's no negotiation with Iran. They will always win. They will always win in negotiation for the same reason.
Sure.
We all know they will take pain and we won't. So they'll win. So what the Robert Papes are saying is, that's it. We just have to put up with it. So it'll become a nuclear power. Well, okay, we'll have to deal with it.
His argument is slightly more nuanced than that, Melanie, which is his argument is you have to give them things that they want, so they take a very long time, but who knows if they'll eventually get nuclear weapons. You have to manage it over time, and it's a chronic problem instead of an acute problem.
It's been managed over 47 years.
And they don't have a nuclear weapon?
Only because the Israelis put it back. But they were very nearly at it. And they were very nearly at producing so many ballistic missiles that nobody could have challenged them as they marched to the bomb. That was the dual thing. But it's a council of complete despair. It's the siren song of appeasement. It was exactly the same
Hitler
in the run-up to the Second World War. People said, we cannot take on the Nazi war machine. It is too strong. And that's why we had the Second World War was as terrible as it was. Now, Iran is weak, and it's been weakened by all the things that we've been talking about. And yet it's so strong. It's so strong that President Trump is basically saying, have everything. How can this be? Because Iran is not strong. Iran is weak. But Iran's strength is because America is weak, because America will not do what it takes. President Trump will not commit for, let's say it's a year. Let's say it's notionally. That's what the Israelis apparently said. He will not commit for a year. He will not commit boots on the ground. He's worried about the midterms. You can't fight a war like this. It's pathetic. It's Mickey Mouse time. So what should he do? What should he have done? Look, I'm not a military expert. You talk about desalination plants. I'm also seeing this. I mean, I don't know what you do about that. I've obviously no idea. But there are certain things that President Trump could have done and could still do. Why is it that Iran is making such a business about Lebanon? Why is Iran making it almost a condition of our even taking part in these negotiations in Switzerland? It's a condition that Israel has to leave Lebanon. Why is it so important to them? Because it's so important that Hezbollah remains. Because Hezbollah is vital to Iran. If you eliminate Hezbollah, then Iran is not just weakened, it's like cut off at the knees, right? I mean, I'm not a military person, this is what I'm hearing. Now, Israel can do that. It's very difficult, but it can do it. But it can only do it if it has America's full-hearted support. The reason why Israel has never been able to win its wars ever, anywhere, in Lebanon, for example, it's called mowing the grass. All it's ever been able to do is to push it back. In Gaza, mowing the lawn. All it's been able to do ever is push Hamas back. It's still there, thanks to President Trump. It's still there, still firing, still attacking Israeli soldiers. Okay, it's much weaker, but it's still there because America said to Israel, stop. There's a bigger game here we're playing. You're not going to get in our way. And it's saying so in Lebanon. Stop. So the ridiculous situation has been created by Trump, by his mismanagement of this.
By Netanyahu.
That the Hezbollah is being used by Iran as leverage to separate America from Israel. And if Trump had any kind of mental wherewithal,
he doesn't.
He would understand that the Hezbollah is his leverage through Israel against Iran. He would be backing to the hilt what Israel is doing to Iran, to Hezbollah in Lebanon. Not just because of Israel.
Do you think there's any chance we do a ground invasion? I think that if we tried to do a ground invasion, I think that Vance would 25 Trump. I think that...
We're coming in, I'm telling you.
I think that the projection on everything is so strong. You know how there was a giant conspiracy, supposedly, to hide how senile Biden was? I think that there is a little bit of one to hide how inept Trump is on everything, as evidenced by what are obvious fucking lies about how mentally competent he is. When RFK Jr. I'm sorry, I should have these clips saved.
Where they're saying like he's the fittest president of all time and he can take the
well, yeah, you've got the guy
Middle East
lying
and write it on a map.
Yeah, the map thing. But obviously, when the that reporter guy, or not the reporter guy, hold on. Where is the what am I thinking of? It's the doctor that releases the thing about how, like, oh yeah, like he's 6'4", 200 pounds. The only mark on his body is the scar on his left ear for the assassination attempt or whatever.
President Trump is exactly the opposite of everything that I believed him to be. He's the opposite of a narcissist. He's an empath. He has encyclopedic molecular knowledge. And one time during the campaign, I was on the airplane with him. We started talking about Syria, and he took a Sharpie and he drew a perfect map of the Mideast. And he has an instinct for making good choices. That I think...
Like, that never happened. This is bullshit. This is not true. Why can't Lebanon just do it? Lebanon does not exist as a country. Lebanon has been almost completely subjugated by Hezbollah. Lebanon cannot exert much will on its own. Hezbollah is the militant force that's taken over, essentially, that country.
And this is
nobody will ever talk about that, but
it's a terrible thing that's coming out from J.D. Vance and all those people, that this war is only being fought for Israel. This is ludicrous.
No, that's true.
The war against Iran is a war for America and the West. Israel is its principal, well, not defender, but sort of point of attack, by which America can attack Iran. It's a resource, a military resource, a priceless military resource that America has. And instead, America has thrown it away and is blaming it and is stopping it. It's stopping it from hitting Hezbollah, which will hurt Iran, in order that Iran should stay in Switzerland and negotiate a deal which gives Iran everything. This is crazy. This is crazy. So, I mean, this war has to be fought properly.
Properly.
I don't know whether it would be able to succeed in a short space of time or whatever. What I do know is that if you are stopping the ally on which you depend, I mean, let's not mince words.
I think the biggest
Israeli
issue is if the
boys
U.S.
have been dying
tries to go and fight this war properly, like boots on the ground invasion, Iran is just going to fuck up all oil in the region.
Well, yeah, and the desalination plants and everything else. But she's talking about,
like,
I think,
it's gonna be
Israel.
insane.
She's talking about Israel fighting a proper war against Hezbollah, I think.
Yeah.
But all of it is fucked, yeah.
For America. Israeli boys and girls are risking their lives for America, for the war to defend America and the West. And yet Americans, like J.D. Vance, are suggesting that
I get your hesitancy with the term apartheid label, but the leadership of Israel refuses to use the term occupied territories. Even the people on the left have a hard time saying occupation, and while insisting all the territories from the Golan Heights on the east to the sea of the west belong to Israel, while also insisting the Arab Palestinians living in the West Bank and Gaza can never get citizenship or equal treatment before the law. Why not just say apartheid? Okay, you convinced me. Apartheid, true. Fine, give me other fantastic words or whatever that we can use. I don't think we should call it genocide anymore. We should just call it a Holocaust as well, because all genocide should be Holocausts. Whatever other terms you think are really good, throw them at me as well. Let's just, because it's definitely helped so far, right? The Palestinians have made so much political progress in the past 30 years, right?
Israelis are just so ungrateful for what we've done for them. Excuse me? This is a war for the West.
No, it's
This is an Islamist war against the West. It cannot be lost. If it's lost, the West is lost. And what Trump has done so far by appearing to give Iran so much, by descending from a great height on America's great ally Israel instead of using it against Iran, what he's done, which is appalling, is to diminish America in the eyes of the entire world as a force for defending civilization. People have now rightly concluded there is nothing that can make America risk its own people to defend itself, and therefore it's open season. It's open season for all bad people. You say quite rightly, there is this infernal
Dude, I hate Israel Palestine. Destiny. Today, Gazans can't leave and haven't been allowed to for almost 18 years, a full childhood. Israelis have freedom of movement. They choose to be there. Gazans can't have the choice. If Israel stopped policing Gazan ports and passports, then Gazans would have fewer excuses to engage in terror, and Israel would be seen more as a victim rather than an instigator. Israel would stand on firmer ground. Yeah, but Israel can only be a victim for so long. Every time Israel has retreated from or left some area where there's been some conflict or whatever, it's only ever gotten worse every single time. When Israel left Lebanon the first and second time, the only thing that happened was Hezbollah got more extreme, they grew more in size, and they got more sophisticated with how they attacked Israel. When they pulled out of the Gaza Strip, and they had less control over the Gaza Strip than they had before, Hamas became more powerful, they became more extreme, they launched more attacks, they became more radicalized. Every time Israel retreats from some area, all they see is everything gets more extreme, more radicalized, and worse. And then you're saying, well, if they just retreat one more time, this is the argument that an Israeli is going to use. And the Israeli is correct in saying this, that when they do pull out of an area, those areas don't usually chill. They get completely fucked. But the issue, but the issue is that Israel is not dealing with state actors on the other side. So whereas for Egypt, where they can make peace, it's because you have a state actor that has a country on the other side. So there has to be some agreement or thing that happens with the Palestinians. It can't just be that, well, let's just give Hamas more ability to have, rights for their people and everything else, and then everything will be better. No, it won't. It'll get significantly worse because there's no final settlement or arrangement of a state or anything. Nobody's pushing for that. Nobody has any concept of how to do that.
Calibration of pain. Iran will take infinite pain And consequently,
they left Egypt and it got better for them because they had a state to negotiate with on the other end of that, right? And it still took an American president to really push that along. But like Egypt existed as a state, so there was a party, a coherent party there to negotiate with that felt like they were getting fucked over. Whereas for the Palestinians, like there is no coherent party to negotiate with, and just pulling out of an area, like they have to have like a state. Like I think that if the Palestinians got a state that was recognized to them, I think that the behavior on the Palestinian side, I think, would change significantly. But there's no will from probably the Israeli population, definitely not the Israeli leadership, to begin that negotiation. I don't even know if the Palestinians have the will to begin that negotiation. I don't even know who would represent the Palestinians right now. I'm not actually sure.
Will always be that.
Isn't Israel a big part of why the Palestinians don't have a state? Today, the story is that Palestinians don't have a state only because of Israel. The reality is in the past, they don't have a state kind of because of the British, because the Brits made a promise to the Jews. It depends on how far back you want to go. To Rome? I don't know. Like, the Kingdom of Israel was there. You had all of the caliphates that were there, the Muslim invasions and everything. You had the Ottoman Empire that existed for many hundreds of years. They didn't have an independent state there. They were all part of these big, huge regions or whatever that the Turks or the Ottomans ran. After that, they didn't have a state because they were just mandatory areas that the British were basically saying, whatever government emerges from here, we'll give, a state to. And then Jews started coming in before the Holocaust and everything else. And then when the 48 War began, Palestinians didn't get a state because Egypt invaded to the south. They took the Gaza Strip. They created a Palestinian government, and then in 2 years, they recalled it to Cairo and disbanded it because they were like, fuck that. And then Jordan occupied the West Bank. They kind of administered it as a Palestinian area, and then in 2 years, they annexed it, and they made every Palestinian a Jordanian citizen, and they said, fuck that. And then so because of Egypt and Jordan there, they're like, oh, well, no state for you guys. This is our land now. Then when Israel took back over in 1967, then Israel took it over. When they started to make deals with other countries, nobody wanted Egypt didn't want the Gaza Strip back with the Sinai Peninsula, and Jordan doesn't really, I don't think they would even give the West Bank. I'm just saying, everybody's fucked around with these people. Everybody's fucked around with this region. Everybody's fucked around all over the place in this place. Nowadays, people just hold Israel accountable. But the reality is that, like, everybody was trading on this land to see what the fuck they could get or what they wanted. So what are you going to do? That's what you're going to do. You're going to slurp it up, baby.
That the West will always be able to.
If the apartheid label updates itself in the modern day to be synonymous to the online definition, would it be reasonable to change the way we use the word or to continue asserting on the original? If people want to use it, the problem is just the word has become pointless, and the problem is that it muddles people's understanding of what's happening. If like everybody had an agreed upon definition for apartheid or whatever, then I guess fine. Then I guess we can just use it because that's how those terms use. But like most people, I would wager a guess that 90% of people, no, that's too much. At least 50% of people that say there's an apartheid in Israel because of the conditions in the West Bank would also say there's an apartheid in Israel proper, that Arabs are second-class citizens to Jewish citizens, which in apartheid terms is not even remotely fucking close to true. But like, it's just, let them blow themselves up. I don't care.
Disadvantage. That is absolutely right. And it's the same argument with the Islamists beyond Iran. So, Islamists will this is what they say. We love death. You love life. We win. What are we supposed to say? The Papes, or whatever his name is, would say, well, that's right. Like, so what do we do? Well, we have to take pain. And because we collectively in the West have so much, we are strong. I mean, America, its firepower is infinitely greater. So, but if we're not prepared to take pain, they win. It's simple as that, and that's what's happening.
Shrimple as,
America's not prepared to take pain at all. The only pain is being suffered by the Israelis, losing boys and girls. Okay, they don't care about that. But America's not prepared to take pain, so Iran wins.
True.
America, with its superior firepower, takes pain, is prepared to take pain, in which I don't just mean losing its people. I mean investing in the time it takes. So if it takes a year, if it takes 18 months, whatever. Okay, this is something that we have to win. We're in it for the long term. Forget the midterms. They probably lost the midterms anyway. Forget the midterms. We are defending civilization here. Brackets. They never made the case to the American people. He has never made the case to the American people. Have no idea what this is about. Okay. So, long way around of saying this, if you're not going to fight the Islamist war against the West, if you're not going to defend the West, because you're going to say they have all the cards, then it's over.
Fuck.
Then why are we even discussing this? Why are they even going to Switzerland? Just say, well, let's all have a nice life, and let's be happy that they are going to get the bomb. It'll be no different from like North Korea. We're all living with North Korea. That went well as well. So either you do that, but if you go to war, you have to do it properly. It's not been done properly. In my view, it can still be pulled back. It can still be pulled back, and maybe Trump will pull it back.
I resisted creatine for years because I assumed it was for people who spend 3 hours a day in the gym
True.
and refer to themselves in the third person. Turns out Francis Foster was wrong on this one. The research on creatine
got a
has
license
moved
for that
way
creatine,
beyond the
mate.
gym.
Boy,
for
mate.
years it was a preserve for bodybuilders and sprinters, but it turns out creatine is something your body makes naturally
What?
and uses as fuel, not just for your muscles, but for your,
your
brain, your
brain,
energy
too.
levels, your mood, your memory. The problem is that from your 40s onwards, your body produces less and less of it, and you feel it. The slower recovery, the afternoon fog, the sense that you're running on
that's from lack of
slightly less than you
creatine?
used
Is that what
to.
you're getting?
Talk to anyone who
Holy
actually
shit.
knows this stuff, and they'll tell you the same thing. Not all creatine is equal, and most of it isn't doing what you think it is. The formula matters.
Why did that heal
Specifically
him?
where it actually gets into your cells and activates once it's there. That's exactly what Qualia Creatine Plus is built around. 2 clinically studied forms
Wait,
of
is
creatine
that healing him?
combined with electrolytes and sea salt, designed to solve the whole problem, not just half of it. I've just started taking it, and once you understand how the formulation works, you wonder
Proportional
why
damage.
nobody built it this way sooner. Go to qualialife.com/trig for 50% off and use the code TRIG for an extra 15% on top of that. That's QUALIALIFE.com/trig, code TRIG. Thanks to Qualia for sponsoring the show.
Thanks.
But Mel, when you say properly, it's a euphemism for putting boots on the ground.
Yeah, if necessary.
But it is necessary at this point, right? Because
I don't know. Maybe supposing America continued its blockade. Okay, I was reading. It was causing Iran incredible angst because they were running out of everything: money, food, whatever. And that's why the pressure started coming on from Qatar and Pakistan. You must settle. You must do the deal because those people, Qatar and Pakistan, are the proxies for Iran. So there was pain coming from Iran. They had to have. They had to have movement.
She's fine.
So if there's pain, increase the pain. Increase the pain.
Well,
True.
if there was pain of the type you described, then that would be reflected in the negotiations. But the negotiations reflect
Physical
the reality,
damage.
I would put it to you, which is the pain is disproportionately being felt by the West.
Once you have negotiation, there is no pain that they have. Once you have negotiation, they've got you.
What I'm saying is, when in this negotiation, you're seeing which side is actually winning the war. And it's not America, it's not Israel.
I'm saying, by definition, once America goes into negotiation, they've lost.
Oh, wait,
Okay,
no, that's good.
so what? But here's the problem, though. What you're really advocating ultimately for is boots on the ground. The game theory of this is the moment you put boots on the ground, they up the level of violence. They start destroying your allies in the Middle East. And if you need to put more boots on the ground on the actual Iranian coastline. You've got these giant mountains, and you're now in a massive war of exactly the type that Russia is stuck in Ukraine, where you've got a powerful country fighting against a smaller but also powerful country, and it's a giant bloodbath for years, which, by the way, will still end in a negotiation. That's what's going to happen in Ukraine. There's not going to be a Ukrainian flag flying over the Kremlin, and I don't think there's going to be a Russian flag flying over the Kiev either.
Okay, but this is like J.D. Vance saying, as he said last year, all wars end in negotiation.
That's not true.
I mean, hello.
But Melanie, what you're saying then is you effectively want what happened to Nazi Germany in World War II, what happened to Japan, because there's no other way to do this.
Yes.
Okay.
Correct.
Okay, I don't know. What are the games? Is Hoy, who makes that one? Is that the same one who makes Stellaris? Hearts of Iron? Yes? Okay. I'm sorry, this is so fucking retarded. When you say all wars end in negotiations, that's true, but why do people why do people have wars or why do people keep fighting is because you can negotiate from a stronger position, right? Like, that's the whole point. The negotiations are not the same when you're winning in a war than if you're losing in a war. So I don't know why they're saying, like, oh, well, if it's just going to negotiate anyway, then let's just fucking, oi, mate. Like,
you want Iran to be bombed into the ground?
Not necessarily bombed, I'm neutralized. If it can be done through, economic starvation.
It can't.
No, hang on. By itself, no. As we have constantly been told, in order to get rid of the regime, there has to be boots on the ground, but the boots need to be the Iranian people. The Iranian people, despite the fact that Trump said everybody on the streets, and that was terrible.
Mm-hmm.
What happened then?
That was awful.
Unforgivable.
Yep.
But they have to be armed, and the IRGC have to be very much more weakened, right? So, but basically, to get rid of the regime, you have to have an uprising from the people. You have to have some boots somewhere. So you may need some American boots on the ground, but you have to use these things. I'm not a military person. I don't know how much would necessitate boots on the ground, how much would be brought about by economic leverage, how much would be brought about by bombing. I can't tell all those things. All I know is you have to have the appreciation of what is required, of what the stakes are, and what your aim is, and you have to follow that through in some way, which has not been done because President Trump's who knows what's in his man's mind, but as far as I can see, what was in his mind was something much faster that he thought, he thought he would bring Iran down, he'd bring the regime to its knees and so on, because by conventional standards he did. Nobody in the administration seems to have the faintest idea of what they're dealing with. They haven't got the faintest idea of the ideology that they're dealing with. I mean, when I read these remarks by J.D. Vance, I can't believe that I'm reading the Vice President of the United States saying something so stupid. He is saying, first of all, Trump is saying, it's a different regime. The regime has changed. These guys are really nice guys. Excuse me? I mean, this is ridiculous. J.D. Vance says, we're if they come on board, we're going to give them money, and then they're going to invest that money in American farmers. They're going to buy American farm produce with the money we will release. What?
We wanted to make sure that we set up a process where if we ever unfreeze Iranian assets, we can ensure that that money, that Iranian money, goes to help the people of Iran and not to fund terrorism. So Jared Kushner actually came up with a very interesting solution with the Qataris, where basically, again, if there is any frozen Iranian assets that are unfrozen, then we have approval over that process. The Qataris have approval over that process. And then the money would actually go to buy American soy, American corn, and American wheat for the benefit
we have
of
so much
Iranian
soy.
people. And if Iranian assets are ever unfrozen, they're going to go to make American farmers richer and to feed the Iranian people. That's a very, very good and very classic Trump deal. That's great for our people.
Trump deal.
Great for
Bro,
the people
this has
of
been a
Iran,
classic
and
Trump deal.
fundamentally, again, will contribute to this regional security architecture that we've built and that we're going to work very hard to ensure that it endures.
What are they talking about?
Oi,
they seem to have no idea that what they're dealing with is apocalyptic messianists who believe that if they bring about the apocalypse on Earth, they will bring into being the Shia Messiah, the 12th
Tell us what Americans
Imam.
should do. If somebody identifies publicly as a Zionist and they write for a bunch of Jewish publications, then you don't have to ask. The answer is always America should go on a full ground war or nuke Iran. That's their answer every time. That's the only thing they want. That's 100% what she wants.
That's what they believe. And they're negotiating with these people? What do they think they're negotiating? The negotiation means, from the Iranian point of view, we're just using this as another tool. So they have no idea what they're dealing with. They seem to have no memory of the, to me, infamous JCPOA negotiations, which led to the JCPOA, the nuclear deal brokered by Obama in 2015. I remember those negotiations. I remember what the West was saying. I remember what the British Foreign Secretary at the time said to me. We're stopping them getting the bomb. And I said, but it's written in the sunset clause. They will get the bomb. You are giving them the bomb. No, they're not going to get the bomb. It's like
Israel hated the JCPOA. They hated it.
There it is. They're giving them the bomb after whatever it is, 12 years, 15 years. And we're being told they're not going to get the bomb. I'm hearing the same thing with Trump. We've won. They've surrendered. So we're negotiating. It's ridiculous. So, yes, I do see it as like Nazi Germany and Japan. I do see it like that. It has to be a proper defeat, which would be complicated, difficult, costly, and take time. But if you don't have the mental, psychological...
Do you disagree that that's Iran's want or outlook for the world? No, or yes, I do. I don't think that it's just it's a radical Islamist, whatever, trying to that's just a very Jewish perspective. I don't know.
Political resilience.
And conservative perspective, I
to
guess.
follow through, then it's worse than useless. Because what's happened, when I say worse than useless, what's happened is America's advertised its impotence and has thus potentially emboldened all the bad guys in the world, China, Russia, North Korea, and all the Islamists all lined up.
No.
They can all see America's a paper tiger. It's not going to do anything. Even with this crazy guy, Trump, who bombed Iran, he's not going to follow through. That's terribly, terribly dangerous for everybody in the West. So the stakes have in my view, got much, much higher.
The problem is as well, Melanie, is we're talking about the American population not wanting boots on the ground.
Correct.
And you said Trump didn't explain it to them. I think the real issue is as well, it's one of geography. For Israel, geographically,
for sure,
existential, for obvious reasons. But when you're in America, let's say you're in California and you're on the Pacific Ocean.
Agreed.
It seems a very long way away.
Of course, and it always was the case. In Britain, not so much now, but when I was younger, I recall people, a general view about America, which was very, very disobliging. We remember, collectively, how slow they were to come on board in the First World War and the Second World War. And then they came on like conquering heroes in the Second World War and said, we won it. And our boys and girls were dying. And they couldn't give us, they couldn't care less because, exactly as you're saying, there is this isolationist tendency. It's always been in America. It's so enormous.
Because we're isolated.
They think they're invulnerable. They think they're a world entire unto themselves.
What do you want us to say? We're across
you can
the
kind of
ocean.
understand it. And it's only when something really cataclysmic happens to them, Pearl Harbor. Without Pearl Harbor, they wouldn't have got involved at all. Europe would have been left to the tender mercies of 9/11. They woke up and then they went back to sleep again because of the apparent disasters of Afghanistan and Iraq, the Iraq War. So you can understand why they retreated. But since then, any responsible president would have told them, if you're going to war, it's no small thing, to put it mildly. And you have to prepare your people. You have to take your people with you. You have to tell them why this is America's war.
Why is it America's war?
Because Iran declared war on America in 1979 and has waged war ever since. It has killed hundreds and hundreds of Americans. What more evidence does anybody need? It says death to America, it means it. It is trying to build intercontinental ballistic missiles, which would be tipped with, even if it's not tipped with nuclear weapons, which could reach America. They already almost reached Diego Garcia, we saw. They're almost there. They're not building intercontinental...
Okay, is the rest of this is proposed? Okay. What'd you guys do this morning?
Slop. Just utter slop today.
Good slop?
No, you're talking to retards at night.
Oh, did you have to go over that?
Yeah, we watched all of it.
Boring. Oh, you're getting that. You're getting the real slop.
Premium slop.
That Emery guy, he was pretty special.
He was retarded.